Welcome to our collaborative webinar with FilterTime. We're going to teach you how to put air filter maintenance on autopilot using both RentCheck and FilterTime. And we're going to go over the benefits of both softwares as well as how it'll all work with a quick walkthrough in RentCheck. So for our agenda today, we're going to do an introduction to both softwares for anyone who's not familiar with one or the other or both. And then we'll go into RentCheck to go over how things will look when these filter check inspections are completed, as well as how the inspections themselves will look when renters receive them. And these will all be automated, of course. And then we'll also go over a quick discussion with Marco and Blake. They're going to talk about their experiences working on both of their like working both at RentCheck and FilterTime. And then we'll also, of course, do a Q&A like we always do, where we'll answer any questions that come in throughout the overall webinar. So feel free to put any questions you have in the Q&A button, or you can send it in chat and Carol will log them so we can go through all of them. All right, and so I'm going to hand it over to Blake to talk about FilterTime. So Blake, if you want to give us a run through of how FilterTime was founded and kind of the mission statement and everything, we'd love to hear about some statistics and benefits as well.
Yeah, for sure. First off, I'm super excited to be doing this and kind of announcing our partnership formally, something we've been working on for a very long time and a very needed program. But I was a NASCAR driver for about 10 years, racing cars all over the country, and thought that was going to be my, kind of forever career. And I lost my ride suddenly in early 2018. And I was wondering, like, what am I gonna do next? I have a family, I have a house, like I gotta make money, I gotta do things. And I decided to take a year off and start a business called FilterTime, where I could send filters to homeowners so they never had to worry about going to buy filters again or finding their size or remembering. And then I was going to get back into racing. Well, when I launched FilterTime in 2018, it kind of exploded and I kind of lost that drive to race. I was like, man, building a business is just as fun. It's competitive. You're always challenged, you're learning, there's goals. So it kind of checked all the boxes for me on what I needed as a person to be happy, right? So shortly after, just focusing on direct consumer, we started getting inbound emails from property managers of, hey, can you ship filters to our residents? Can you, all these different requests. And at first I was like, no, that's really not something we do. And after like 4 or 5 people emailing, I was finally like, hey, maybe this is something that's needed and I can create this portal and kind of make this a great package for people that are needing to send filters to all of their rental properties. So we launched that program in 2020. And yeah, so most of our business is still direct consumer, but it's close to half from the property management standpoint of shipping filters right to residents. There's so many benefits of air filters, right? And for Dale and I, like in racing, we just thought it was kind of a natural fit because it's like preventative maintenance, right? So race cars is all about preparing your car and having the right, maintenance items checked to make sure you can finish the race. And filters are one of those things for your house, right? So you need to make sure they're changed so your AC keeps working, right? Especially right now in the summer. So I'm kind of rambling here, but like it's really been a fun business with all the different opportunities, and this is one of those opportunities that I'm super, super excited about with RentCheck.
Awesome. Yeah, I thought it was so interesting that you made the comparison between a car and a house for this, because it is like, if the one part doesn't work, it causes other things to have issues. And in the case of a rental property, it can cause, health issues, it can cause expensive maintenance issues. And of
Yeah.
course, with RentCheck, that's part of why we have this inspection solution. RentCheck, of course, is a digital inspection platform that allows renters and property managers to complete inspections and also collaborate on inspections. And in partnership with FilterTime, we are able to automate inspections for air filter checks that not only ensure that people are receiving air filters from FilterTime through this partnership, but also ensure that they're replacing them on a set cadence so that you're able to do proactive upkeep of your HVAC and other filters in the home so that you can make sure that everything is being taken care of before it becomes an expensive problem. And so the way this is all going to work with the RentCheck and FilterTime partnership, this is going to be automatic delivery of both the filters and the inspections once you enroll properties, and we'll go over how to do that. But This is a super easy installation. This is something that can be done, without ever having replaced an air filter before. And we're also going to ensure that everything is verified when they complete an inspection for one of these air filter checks. If any RentCheck users are in the chat, they know that when you do an inspection, it's time stamped and they have to take the photos directly in the RentCheck app. So you know that they are replacing it each time they need to when they receive one of these air filter checks, because these will be shipped in bulk and they'll receive air filter checks as a reminder and also as a verification process for completing these air filter changes. And so just to go over how this all works in more detail, like I mentioned, this is automatic. So this is going to be sent out to the current residents at the units that you select that are enrolled in the program. And we'll go over the form that we use to enroll units. And this doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can enroll handfuls of units. You can do it on a new lease basis, like when you have a turnover and you're ready to start sending out these air filters for the first year of a lease, for example. This is something you can do, if you want to enroll all of your properties, we would love that. But you can also, of course, do it as you have new renters to introduce the process to them and set that expectation from the very beginning. This is also a process that's going to help you build trust with your residents. Replacing air filters, of course, has health benefits as well as maintenance benefits. And having these go out automatically and on a set schedule will basically make everything, automatic on their end as well. They will be able to get a reminder from RentCheck, go in, replace the air filter, document it, and everything gets sent straight to their door in bulk, like I mentioned before. And I talked a little bit about expensive problems, but when you are actively replacing HVAC filters throughout the year, this is the easiest way to identify issues and make sure that, the easiest thing you can do for an HVAC is replace the filters each time that a filter is dirty or needs to be replaced. So this is going to be a way to prevent those expensive issues, because replacing an HVAC, especially like in the summer or in the winter, if there's a heating issue rather than a cooling issue, this can really make it so that you don't have to replace a whole unit or add, costs on top of the maintenance of that device. You'll be able to make sure that things are being kept up as regularly as possible. And another part of this partnership that's really powerful is that it's going to help offset costs. A lot of people have been using this to incentivize sort of a opt-in program with their renters, where when they start with a lease or they renew a lease, they're able to opt into this, so that something that is not really changing your overhead as much, and it's something that will benefit both the renters and your company. So I'm going to take us over into RentCheck. And so the first thing I want to do is show the template that you'll be using if you were to start working in the RentCheck platform with the FilterTime partnership. And so I'm just going to pull this over into my window over here. And so I mentioned that for your units, you can enroll them on a rolling basis. For example, I just have one unit in here. And once you're set up in RentCheck with the FilterTime partnership, you're able to just add the units you want by grabbing the address, the shipping address that you'd be sending it to, and filling out these different fields. And you'll see that there's a drop down on the filter pack option. So you send the amount of filters that you have either selected or that you'll need for that year or however long you're wanting to run this. And so you'll see that you can also select the cadence. So you can send these out quarterly, annually, or biannually, depending on the type of filters and the amount of filters you're sending. And you're able to indicate a start date and the size so that FilterTime knows exactly what needs to go out to these units. And so what is really helpful with this too is that when these filter inspections are being completed, you'll see verification of the correct filter size when they go and install them. And when inspections come back, they'll line up with the start date and each continuous inspection after that, or recurring inspection after that, depending on the type of filter they're receiving. You'll get an inspection back. If you're sending it annually with a 4-pack and they're replacing it every 3 months, they will be receiving a RentCheck inspection every 3 months, and then you'll get one back starting in July, then again in October, again in January, and so on. And so going over to RentCheck, this is going to happen behind the scenes, of course, with automations. And so with the partnership, when you enroll units, so for example, I just enrolled this 1028 South Carrollton Unit A. I'm going to go ahead and set up an air filter check for this. This is actually You won't have to set anything up yourself, but this is what would be happening on the back end. So when the unit is enrolled, if we go back and look, they're going to receive a 4-pack shipped annually. So they're going to get a pack of 4 for a year. They would receive our air filter check, which we'll take a look at, one that the renters would receive, as well as one that has already been completed. I'm going to select my air filter check and have this line up with our date of June 1st. And this will actually line up with the delivery date of the filter. So I could actually even say this will get delivered on, let's say, the 7th, since the 4th is going to be a holiday. And then these will happen quarterly. And then these will get assigned out to the current residents. And this is, of course, a process, if you've already used RentCheck before, something you'll be familiar with if you were doing this manually, but this is going to happen based on the cadence you select in your intake form here. And then when you set up the inspection, or rather when they're set up for you, these will be set up to go out to the current residents at that unit. And they'll be scheduled out to line up with the deliveries. And so I set this up for 2 years rather than just 1 year. But if we go into the inspection that is set up for July, you'll see it's been scheduled out. And for the sake of our walkthrough, I'm going to also set up one for us to go over in the mobile app so we can see what it'll look like when they receive it. So I'm just going to quickly set up one right now for that same unit. And I'll go ahead and just leave the date for today for our walkthrough, and I'll assign it to myself. And then I'm going to jump over to the RentCheck mobile app. So when the renter receives the inspection, they'll get an email and a text if we have both of that, both those pieces of information for assigning the inspection. And they'll also receive reminders to complete the air filter check. The inspection will be sent 2 weeks before the due date for the air filter. So they'll have a reminder, and we also will send automatic reminders that line up with the due date. So they'll receive a 1-week reminder if they've already received the filters, which if it was one after that first initial inspection, they would be able to just go in and replace it each following inspection time. But they will essentially get reminders so that they don't forget about doing it, even though they've received the filters in bulk, for example. Or if they receive it biannually, these reminders that we send will help with making sure that they're getting this done each time it's required. So I just shared my phone screen. Carol, would you mind letting me know when you can see it? Sometimes my phone doesn't immediately start sharing to my computer.
Yep, I'll keep you posted.
Okay, sometimes it can take a second.
We see it.
All right, perfect. So on the renter's end, of course, they would not see all these different inspections. They would see just inspections that were assigned to them. And going into this air filter check, you'll see that it's just a simple, quick walkthrough. When you go into the different steps, you'll need to start with the introduction, because with this inspection, after you take some photos of your filters, you'll be prompted to indicate how many filters there are in your home. So if you just select one, you'll receive one prompt like we saw on the initial inspection screen, but you'll be able to indicate however many that you have. So if you have multiple HVAC filters that need to be replaced each time, if you say there are 2 filters, you'll see if we hit save and continue, it'll take us to the filter removal. And if we were to back out to the list, you'll see that it adds a second set of prompts to make sure that every filter change is being verified each time they receive the filters to replace, or rather they receive the filter change inspection to replace if they're receiving them all at once in bulk. So going into the different steps, we've got the filter removal, which is going to instruct them to open the HVAC unit, remove the used air filter, and take 2 pictures, one on the top and one on the bottom side of it. So I'm going to take my 2 pictures of my desk in this case, but you'll see that after that, you're able to leave notes. This is really helpful with these inspections being completed because the notes, if they have anything to share about the HVAC, when renters go in to do a RentCheck inspection, if you're already a RentCheck user, you're familiar probably with this, but we encourage the renters to document anything that's relevant to the inspection during the course of it. So if there's something they needed to leave a note on, or something that they might want to include as an additional photo, they can, of the HVAC. And one other thing I want to note, this flag for maintenance option will not show up for renters. But you'll see as you go through each step, The next one requires you to compare them. So you'll take one of your new filters from FilterTime and take a picture of the clean one and the old one next to each other. And then you'll have an option to leave notes again as well. And then you'll also need to document the installation with the next step so that it's shown that you've actually put the new filter into the HVAC. And then if you had a second one, you would follow the same steps. And if, for example, someone said, oh, I only have two, and then they realize there's a third one, a smaller one maybe, that needed to be documented as well, you can make a change to your answer here. And you'll see if we back out of the list, it adds a third filter and so on. So this is pretty simple. And, our system walks you through each step with those instructions on the camera page. But this is a really easy way to verify everything, and it'll be happening automatically, sent out to the renters with those reminders. And once that inspection is submitted and uploaded, you'll get a notice letting you know that the inspection has been submitted for you to review. And then if we head over to the computer again, I'm going to switch my screen share so we can take a look at a finished inspection. In RentCheck, we log the date an inspection was completed. In this case, this one was done today here at our office, or rather not here where Marco is, but I'm not at the office yet. But on these inspections, you'll see that it's broken up in the sections we saw on the mobile app. And so this is going to be exactly what you see on if you were completing a filter check yourself. And so you'll see that this person included not only photos of the filter inside of the HVAC itself, but also photos of the size of filter. If you go through each section, you'll see the removal when Alexa was taking out the filter, the comparison. I don't think she had another filter to replace with, but you'll see in this case, everything was documented in full, and you're able to quickly share this or, of course, download the report itself. Something else that you'll be able to do if you use one of our integrations with AppFolio, Rentvine, Rent Manager, these will get uploaded directly into one of those softwares, whichever one you're integrated with, and they'll be added as an attachment in AppFolio, as a file in Rentvine, or in the history and notes in Rent Manager. And this will get logged so you can easily share it from your property management system as well as from RentCheck. Additionally, on renter inspections, if you're familiar with this, this one was technically completed internally, but on renter inspections, you'll also be able to send them back to the renter with our revision request tool, which if someone didn't take a clear enough picture, or if they did not include enough detail when submitting this, for example, I might send this filter comparison back to Alexa so she can retake this. I can always send this right back to her. And that will be a little pen icon that appears here. But this is pretty simple and pretty straightforward, and it's something that'll happen pretty much automatically besides when you enroll your units. And once you've added your units, you can add more at any time. And as you add them, you'll start seeing those air filter checks not only scheduled and sent out, but completed by the renters, because this takes just a few minutes to complete. And with the help of the FilterTime team delivering these in line with the inspection dates, this will basically happen, on autopilot. And so from here, I'm going to open it up so that we can start talking about the partnership and just kind of the benefits of everything with some insights from Marco and Blake. And so I'm going to go ahead and end my screen share so we can all see each other while we're talking. And I'm going to kick it off with a discussion question. And so Marco and Blake, I put together a few things I wanted to talk about, but the first thing, Marco, I know your story really well, and I know that part of why you founded RentCheck was because you were a property manager trying to solve issues. And so in your experience as a property manager, why do you think air filter change documentation is just such a small lift with big rewards?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've been I bought my first rental property after graduating undergrad station. I was in the military, so I was stationed in Virginia Beach, and then moved every 2 years as an officer, and so just continued acquiring homes and managed them mostly remotely. And so, like as a property manager, there's kind of a few things that I think are directly applicable to air filter changes. Is like you want to try to make your asset last as long as possible without having to put more resources into it. HVAC is one of the kind of the most expensive, mechanical pieces that's at the property. And it directly affects not only you as a property manager, or if you're managing on behalf of an owner, the owner's expenses. It also, at the end of the day, affects the resident, right? Because like if that thing goes down or it needs maintenance, an issue, like the resident's unhappy, and it usually isn't a quick fix with it with the HVAC thing, especially if it's in the summertime. And so that's kind of number one, is like, how can you do these simple things where you don't have to send somebody to the property? You can get the resident involved to kind of do these general maintenance things that are super easy, where you don't need to be trained. And the second is, I think it's an easy way to identify your residents' behaviors, and which residents are kind of care about the property and are kind of like a mutual partner in the agreement between you and the resident. Like they're going to change the air filter because they know, like, it's easy for them to do. They have clean air, and it also will, make them have a good experience as a renter. And so I think it's one of those things that, shows that, like, hey, they're a partner with you. And two, you can make it as easy as possible for them. And so when we, started doing inspections, and we got more requests for HVAC inspections, and people started utilizing those, when FilterTime came along and said, hey, we want a partner, it seemed like, hey, if we can make this the most beneficial experience for both the owners, the managers, and the residents, it seemed like a no-brainer. So that's kind of my perspective. And Blake, I'll pass it to you. Maybe you have some thoughts on the maintenance piece and what you're excited about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the stats are available to everybody. The number one reason for a service call for an HVAC unit is a dirty filter, and the number one reason for an HVAC system breaking prematurely is not regular filter changes, right? So, like I said about racing, you don't want like a $20 part to cost you $20,000, right? Like you want to replace the things that need to be replaced and stay ahead of the maintenance. But there is a lot of benefits for the resident, and not everybody knows about and can be more educated on, is the air quality, right? Like it improves your air quality tremendously using a high quality filter. You also want to make sure your heating and air stays working, right? So if I was a resident, I want to make sure, I have AC throughout the summer. I need to change my filters, and I have cleaner air, and it reduces my energy bills, right? So the dirty filter adds strain to your HVAC unit, makes it work harder, increases your monthly energy costs. So there's so many benefits, right? Like I don't want to ramble about filters, right? Like it's not the most exciting thing in the world, but there's huge benefits for owners, for property managers, and the actual residents living in the home. But
Yeah, I
one
like
thing
that.
I mean, one thing about this, it keeps popping in my head, is the first time we went and talked to a lot of property managers in person at a NARPM event. Everybody's like, "Oh, that's great, but how can we make sure they're actually changing them?" Right? I was like, "Huh, that's when we started talking to RentCheck. Like, well, we could do this, and that we could solve a major issue with RentCheck." So that's why this is so exciting to me.
Yeah, let me jump on that point real quick, Blake, because our prop managers are that we work with as customers are all over the country. A lot of them leverage different types of air filter programs, which I think are great. As long as you have an air filter program in place, that's amazing. And our verification is used on a bunch of our customers anyways. But when we talk to Blake, and one of the biggest costs when it comes to air filters is the shipping costs, right? Because they're bulky. And so, if you're with a program where you're paying to get delivered monthly or at that cadence, the cost is high. And so when we talk with Blake, and we kind of understand his costs and like the structure of like just air filters delivered up front where they can be verified, the cost saving from just a filter standpoint was like, hey, this is the best scenario for, I think, the resident and the owners, because you get them at the best cost, and Blake can kind of talk about that. But also, it's an even better resident experience because they can have them all there. They could do it on their own time within that window. They're not waiting for the exact delivery date. There's a lot of issues there, and so that's what was excited when we talked about this, to say, hey, let's make this kind of a deeper integration and as seamless as possible.
Yeah, the cost savings is huge. I mean, really the only reason to have filters delivered monthly or quarterly, like when they need to be changed, is for the reminder part, right? But the RentCheck integration solves the reminder part. So you'll have all the filters you need up front. So you don't have that's less damages, right? Less opportunity for mistakes, or traveling across the world, a filter sometimes gets damaged. Now with FilterTime, we're less than 0.5% damage rate. So we have really good boxes. We make sure they get there damage free, but it does remove that. So, um, like Marco said, the only like the cost savings is huge because for FilterTime, it doesn't cost me much more to send 4 filters as it does 1 filter. So then if you have 4 products in one box, it can be drastically less expensive for everybody, which is a win.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the cost, the first cost thing you brought up, Blake, with the energy costs for the renter too. Like, if they pay the utilities themselves, or it's not part of the like monthly fee bill at the end of the month for the rent, that's a huge thing for renters because it's an easy win for them to save money not only by helping you, but also by helping themselves.
Yeah, and just making sure they have the correct filter, right? They're
Yeah.
using the correct MERV rating, right? We want to send them a filter that lasts as long as possible, doesn't get clogged super fast and damage your unit. Want to make sure they're not using the ones that don't block anything, and then the coils get all caked up. So we use a MERV 8 filter, and we feel like that's the best possible filter for these homes. And also, it's not easy to find your filter. If you're a renter, you go to the store to find filters and you have, this odd size, you might not find it. And then you're not going to buy it and then you're not going to replace it. Or even worse, put the wrong size in it and then there is no filter, right? So just
Yep.
making sure people have the correct filter that they need for that particular home is super important.
On that note, Blake, I did want to ask you a question that I just thought of. Do you have a suggestion for how often someone should change their air filters? Like, do you have like a good rule of thumb? I know there's all kinds of information on the internet, but what do you think as the professional?
Yeah, we get asked that question all the time, and that's a super hard answer because it has everything to do with how well your home's insulated, where you live, how often you're running your air conditioning unit. So when we've talked to some HVAC technicians and professionals and had surveys done, they always recommend checking it after 30 days. So like if you're on a subscription, right, and you sign up for 3 months. But if you check it
Mhm.
after 30 days and it's dirty, you need to change that frequency to every 30 days. If you check it after 60, and it's still clean, you can make it 3 months, right? But for the first time, they want to make sure that you're at least checking how dirty it is every 30 days. And that's really the only way to find out because every living condition is different. How many you have pets, how many pets, do you leave your windows open? Do you not like it's just too hard to tell people that this is the certain frequency for basically the entire United States, right?
Yeah, and part of the reason I brought that up is because, Marco, Carol, and I see all kinds of different structures for this for people who are doing inspections outside of the Filter Time partnership on air filters. We include it in our regular inspections that happen during the lease. And so it's interesting to see how different the cadences can be. And so I was curious if you had a suggestion, because like here in Louisiana, you have to change it really more than every 3 months just because it's so humid. There's a lot of stuff in the air. And like in California, the same thing goes with any kind of air pollution. You got to change it regularly, and it's required to change it regularly by the state. So, it's something that can be kind of hard to figure out what the best thing to do is. So I was just curious. And Marco, if you have
Yeah.
anything to add, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, I've owned properties all over, and yeah, it really depends on I think the property type, where it's located, and seasonal for sure. There's some areas where you're just not running the AC a lot, and there's some where the summer, like in the South, Arizona. I live in Arizona and have a house in Arizona that's a rental property now. Like in the summer, it's like you got to change that every month, or there's dust and you're running it constantly. So it really kind of depends, and I think most people, should, like send some, or like they don't know based on where their properties are located, like, sign up for something, have the checks go out, and if those air filters are dirty or super dirty, or they're looking kind of clean, when they are getting changed, then say, hey, maybe we can cut them down, or we can increase it on the next annual renewal, or whatever it might be. And so I don't think this is like a set and forget right out the get-go. I think if you want to be, focused, make the best decision, you can kind of monitor it over time, which is really easy with this partnership, which is great. So.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
only I have some data just on our homeowner customers for filter time is 2 months is basically our average across the United States. ton of people do it every month, ton of people every 3 months, but 2 months is pretty much our average.
That's good to know because typically, like in California, for example, it's expected to happen every 90 days or every 3 months. And so having it every 60 days, if that's what's the best for the machine, the best for the people living in the home or the unit, seems like that might be a
Yeah.
solution
You're
for
not gonna
making sure.
you're not
Yeah.
gonna hurt anything changing them too often. I can promise you
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like
that's the
changing
thing.
the
And
oil in a car. Sorry, Marco.
no, that's the idea. It's like, yeah, and if you go from like four filters for the year to six or whatever, you just kind of bump it up a little bit. It's like the cost, the annual cost is not that much difference. And if if the HVAC is, down for 2 days, depending on like when it is, like, the cost associated with that for the resident and getting somebody to emergency fix it, like it's not even close on the potential cost that you're going to have versus just upfront maintenance type of thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. And going back to the car analogy, with you can change it as many times and it doesn't hurt it. There's all kinds of things you can do to a car that you should probably do more than you should. So it's really is like the perfect comparison. And so do you all have any other final thoughts before I open it up for Q&A and our poll that we're going to do?
yeah, I think the last one I had just to touch on was the documentation piece. Like lots of people, it's a saying from my days in the Navy that if it's not documented, it didn't happen, right? And so especially if you're an owner for yourself and you have a warranty on that HVAC system, like you want to be able to show that, like, hey, I was changing air filters, on a regular basis. Like, I want my warranty. Or hey, if it's your third party manager, you can go to the owner and say, like, hey, we were doing everything we could for this unit, and like it's not my job as the manager, it's just the units had, and it's time to update it. So like you're not going to be yelled at by the owner of the unit that you're managing for that owner. So I think just in general it's good documentation, and I think I really do. We don't have the stats on this yet, but I think there is a good correlation of like residents that just change air filters and are partners in it, how they treat the property overall, and number of work orders, those types of things that you can kind of it's an easy way to like have a pulse check on which of your residents should you focus on more versus ones that are pretty well at maintaining the property and letting you know when there is an issue. So
Yeah, and one other thing to mention that I think I was excited to get to the discussion with the property management system integrations we offer. You are able to create work orders if you notice an issue on one of those air filter checks by flagging items for maintenance. So if you use AppFolio, Latchel, Rentvine, Rent Manager, you're able to create work orders from those as well as just having them sync back to those systems. So that's another piece that's super important is like you'll be able to see an issue and then you can just send it over and get a vendor out there, get a team member out there to look at it and maybe, fix something before it turns into an expensive problem for you and for the renter. And Blake, do you have any other final thoughts or anything you wanted to share?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much. That was really great to hear your insights and, y'all both have a lot of experience with this kind of thing, so it's definitely good to hear from the professionals. And so from here, I'm going to open it up to just a general Q&A, and I'm going to share my screen again so that we can get our QR code up in case you're not a RentCheck customer and you want to take a look at our demo. And I'm also going to launch our poll. That's just a couple of quick questions. You'll also receive a survey after the walkthrough if you're interested in either RentCheck, FilterTime, or both. If you're not already a user of one or both, you'll be able to submit information to us so we can get you set up with either a trial, or if you're interested in a demo, we can also, of course, for RentCheck, we are able to set that up as well. So let me just launch the poll. And Carol, do you have any questions that you want to send my way?
Yeah, we have one question that came in and they asked if we sync with Buildium.
So not currently, but it's definitely in the pipeline. Marco, you might have more insight into that,
yeah.
but I know it's something we've been working on.
Yeah, I can share. Like, we have an easy upload way for Buildium users to sync their units on a regular basis and keep resident and unit information up to date. We are in the process of getting scheduled a full integration with Buildium. It's been more on their side because of some issues they had, and so looks like that will be slated for Q3 for us to hopefully get that completed. So a full Buildium integration, similar to all our other ones, is in the near term going to happen.
Awesome. And it looks like we're already getting some engagement on the poll. And before I get into that, I did also want to say with the Buildium upload, we have an imports hub that allows you to export from any property management system, upload your units, your residents, so that you can have all that information built into RentCheck. And the recommended cadence for that is just updating it every month or every other month to make sure that all of the resident information is updating as they move in, move out, or renew a lease. And then, of course, if you take on new units, you're able to add them immediately. Or, of course, if for whatever reason you need to remove a unit, you can do that just with a couple of clicks in RentCheck. And the poll looks like we got a lot of people saying they're already doing air filter checks or replacement verification, which is awesome. There are a couple people who said they aren't, but they should. And if you are a RentCheck user, if you are interested in setting up FilterTime with your RentCheck account, just fill out that survey that's going to come to you after the webinar, and we'll make sure to reach out. If you're not already a RentCheck user, we'll also reach out to you to see if we can get you set up with a trial or something. And so, Carol, do we have any other questions?
No, I think we probably covered so much that there just aren't any questions.
Did we get the filter? Someone says filter size, about the filter sizes. Did I miss that?
Let's see. Let me take a look.
I think one thing we didn't hit on that I could, talk about a little bit is about our actual filters, right? And that they're all made right here in North Carolina. We make them in-house with all American-made materials. Everything we have comes here locally from the Carolinas, and I think we get our glue from Georgia, right? So everything's right here centralized. We don't have a 3PL company. We ship it all out of our warehouse, and people can sign up right with RentCheck. It's not like you have to have RentCheck and FilterTime. You can do all this through RentCheck, deal with one person, and FilterTime's just making sure that you get the correct filters.
Yeah. And Carol, I saw that filter size question that Marco was looking for.
Yeah. What if I don't know my filter size for a property?
So there are a couple things you could do in that case. Some people who are already RentCheck users will send out an air filter check on their own just to get that information. In addition to that, you can always reach out to the renter. We are always encouraging renters and property managers to collaborate. And so just having a quick air filter check sent over to them will give you that information. You could even just ask them, what's the size of the filter that's already in the HVAC. And so if you're doing regular inspections, that will actually be included in the inspection templates that we send out. So if you send an annual, a periodic, you'll see that in those inspections under the air filter section of the inspection. So you may already have that information if you're already a RentCheck user, and you'll just need to go to the air filter section because we require the person completing that section of the inspection to take a photo where you'll be able to see the size as well.
Thank you, Jack. And one more question. What is the cost of the program?
Yeah, Marco, I'm going to let you take this one because I do not have it right in front of me, unfortunately. But Marco, do you have the cost of the program?
I have no idea. That's not my area of expertise. Sorry. I'm as a CEO, I'm more on the product. I'm an engineer by trade, and so I spend most of my time making sure our product works really well. And integrations are great, and it's a great experience. So I don't know, Blake might, or we can definitely follow up and share information on the cost. But I would say overall, it's probably way better than other programs you've looked at based off of the cost. I know that we can have savings with shipping the filters up front. But
yeah,
about that.
Yeah, I think we can narrow down the cost when we talk to somebody individually of what their needs are, because the cost changes so much if they want, a 4-pack, a 6-pack, or a 12-pack, and how often they're going to replace them and so on and so forth. So there's quite a bit of different variables. It's not just a one set price for every situation or a monthly fee or anything like that. So you probably just have to talk to people individually.
Yeah, and Megan, of course, was on the ball, and she posted the pricing in the chat there. Thank you, Megan.
Perfect. Thank you, Megan. One other thing I wanted to note, just to visualize it all, with the filter packs, this will line up with the pricing. And of course, like Blake said, depending on what your needs are, that pricing could be slightly different. So this will be kind of what determines your price, along with, of course, any conversations you have with FilterTime.
We just had another question come in.
Yeah.
They're using a different service and they're paid a monthly fee. They want to know our thoughts on that.
So with the monthly fee, is it a fee that's collected from the renters, or is it a fee that's paid through like the service you're using with Second Nature?
Yes, they're using Second Nature.
Yeah. So David, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat just to clarify so I can understand the question a bit more. I just want to make sure before I start answering that I understand kind of the setup that you have already.
Yeah, I think potentially what he's referring to is Second Nature is kind of built as like a resident benefits package. So typically the
Yeah.
cost is the resident pays monthly or they pay for it, and then a portion of that what the resident's paying gets passed as as a fee to the property management company, right? So that's one way to do it. There's lots of ways that you can either pay for this as the property manager, get the owner, and the owner pays for it, or you can get the residents to pay for it. Regardless of what path you go down, you can do that, set that up however you want using our partnership. The end of the day, what it is, if you are going to take that, you could get the same potential fees if you do charge the resident. And the resident would actually pay less because they're not paying as much for total resident benefits package, and they're not paying for the shipping and everything that's built in to get those delivered at the time. So you could still probably make, I don't know the breakdown, but if you did end up charging the resident and communicate that, you could still charge the resident. You'd be able to probably get the same amount of fees, just the resident would pay less. So it would actually be a benefit to the resident as well. So, but I don't know all the exact numbers and details, David. Sorry.
All right. Well, thanks, Marco. Do we have any other questions right now? I know we've got about 13 minutes left scheduled for the webinar, so I'm happy to stick around and answer questions. I see one that just came in, Carol.
Yep, it says, do you have to sign up for FilterTime separately on their website and enroll properties there, and then just schedule air filter checks in RentCheck that match the delivery date of the filters, or do you do it all in RentCheck?
Great question. So with the partnership, if you have a RentCheck account, you'll be enrolling properties from your RentCheck account in one of these forms with the details here. And right now it's going to be done in this form, but in the future, I know that we are interested in making it so that it can happen on either side. But Blake, you might have more specific details about what they need to do on the FilterTime side.
From my understanding right now, if you're a RentCheck user, you would contact RentCheck to upload all of your filters and properties and pay RentCheck, kind of a one-stop shop with RentCheck. If you're a FilterTime customer or already talking to us, like it's the same upboarding. We just need addresses, filter sizes, and pack quantities, right? So the onboarding process isn't much different as far as information that we need.
Yeah, we want to make it so if you're a RentCheck customer already or you want to sign up, like you can just you're going to give us your proper information anyways. We have all of that resident information. So we want to make it as easy to do everything directly through us. And FilterTime focuses on making sure you guys are getting the best filters in a timely manner when they're supposed to be cost effective. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if you reach out to us from that article that Megan linked, like both Blake and Marco said, as long as you fill out the form, we're going to make it all happen, and then it'll be added to your billing based on that. All right, any other questions? I'm happy to answer questions that, if it's just about the air filter check inspections themselves, if there's something that, you'd be interested in seeing happen with the FilterTime and RentCheck partnership and integration, we can go over anything that you're curious about. And I did already pull our poll results from the poll we ran. And so I do just want to highlight a couple of the responses to our short answer question, which was, how often have you gone into a unit turn and found unused or unreplaced filters? Maybe it's because a renter didn't get the reminders, they just had them and didn't realize they were supposed to replace them. Especially that can happen with college students. I see that in the responses, someone mentioned that this has happened at least 10 times. Someone else mentioned that it happens 95% of the time. And this is a really important insight to have, because if they're getting reminders and they're being told, you have to do this air filter check verification to make sure that the filters that you receive are being replaced, that will drastically reduce the amount of times that's going to happen. And someone also left an interesting comment saying that, renters will tell them that they didn't know how to change the filters. The residents will say that, they weren't sure how to use the filters. And then you have to send your vendors out for repair or replacement. This is why we partnered with FilterTime, so that you didn't have to worry about doing that as much. There wasn't, that room for error where you have that set of filters, but not something to remind you. And so this is a way to make sure that it's not only getting sent out and people are told to do it, but they're also being prompted to take pictures. Like Marco said, if you didn't write it down or you didn't keep a record of it, it didn't happen.
Yeah, and one more point on that, Jack, is if you're sending these out to residents and you can see through our system that they have the air filters, that they're getting the reminders, they're opening the emails, they're getting the notifications. We track all of that and expose that to you. If they're not doing it, then you can, that like, hey, we want to send somebody out there to change these air filters, and you can charge, the resident, say, hey, you had plenty of opportunity. We warned you, and now we're charging you for this visit because we're going to change the air filters or whatever. Some people do that as like the negative to try to help change the behavior, and you're, cover your costs to have to send somebody out there to go change those for the resident. So.
Yeah, and Carol, I saw there were a couple of questions in the chat about different RentCheck features. And so I saw that Di asked about the automations. And so currently with the HVAC inspections, if you were to use our move in and move out automation to send those out, or if you were just scheduling them directly in RentCheck, the inspection will require them to take a photo that shows the filter, but to share that filter information, that is something that might make sense to implement with the inspection label tool. If you're sending it to one specific user, if you're just setting these up on a schedule rather than using the move in, move out automation, if you're just scheduling out a bunch for a unit at once, you would be able to use the inspection label. And so with the FilterTime partnership, that's information that has to be collected before you enter it into the intake form that I showed you. But if something were to get sent and they need a different size, that is also something that we can assist with. I know that's happened, once before, and we were able to get it resolved really quickly and get the correct filters sent right back out to the renter in basically the same timeline that they received the first set. So that is something that we also assist with. So if you were to enroll in the program and you had filters going out and there was a slight difference in the dimensions, that's something that we can accommodate as well. As long as we get a notice about it, we can make it happen for you. And then Carol, are there any other questions?
David asked for a summary of all of the things that RentCheck does, and I know that that's a very long list, and we might need another hour.
I don't have enough time for that. But yeah, high level, David, you can reach out. We can give you more information, or you can have a demo. But we help automate all property inspections through the entire lease cycle. So from move in to move out, turn. And we specialize in, in getting residents involved during the occupied period to get them to perform inspections in a guided, really good way, so that it's as good or better than if you sent somebody out there to walk the property. So you can reduce kind of in-person visits to properties without losing visibility, and focus your staff on going to the properties that may be problems or may have issues, or just fixing all the maintenance stuff that needs to get done for the properties. So that's kind of high level in a nutshell, but we can get you scheduled and give you a deep dive.
We also had another question about collecting filter sizes. Currently, Dye uses spreadsheets, and they're very cumbersome, but they do have a log of the sizes as they collect them over turnovers. Is there an easier way that they can utilize RentCheck for that?
So going back to even just like the annual, the periodic inspections, when those are done, when the air filter portion is finished, it'll be logged there. Something that some people will do with customization on our inspection templates is they'll add a prompt for the renter to share the size in text form, so that you can just pull it right out of the report and add it somewhere that's more transferable. And so that is something that you could totally do with RentCheck just by making a tweak to some of your templates. And so if there's a set of different dimensions that you can identify, like if there's 4 or 5 different options that you typically see with your units, you could set up a multiple choice question that has those options, as well as one that says other or unknown. And they'd be able to leave a note telling you what that number is as well, or rather the dimension.
Yeah, so we could definitely, you could deploy a RentCheck, filter size check and gather a bunch of those across the properties and not have to wait until you go out there and do a turnover. So that's something that could be set up pretty easily and would be pretty effective.
Yeah, and one other idea I had, Marco, is that they could use the maintenance check if they wanted to check something else. We have a tool called the maintenance check inspection that lets you pick and choose specific items to inspect rather than having like a set template. You could send them an air filter inspection along with a couple other things you expect to check regularly, like smoke alarms, carbon monoxide, fire extinguishers, all kinds of stuff like that that are really about safety. You'd be able to also collect that information with a maintenance check.
Yeah, and I saw one more question from David about, the attic filters, the 4-inch wide ones. Those are, pretty easy to change. It really comes down to the resident, like what's the access to the attic? Is the resident, physically capable and comfortable climbing up a ladder? And is it easily accessible, right? Not all attics, I wouldn't, it kind of depends on the setup. So that's probably more on your judgment of like, hey, do you think the attic access and the attic, ability to get to that is easy if you know where it is, and you can upload example photos so that you can show examples if you have that help direct the residents as well. So it could be easy. It really comes down to like the access and if they're 85 years old and not comfortable going up there or not. So.
And the good news about those 4-inch filters too is they last longer. So we see a lot of people with the 4 and 5-inch filters, they don't have to change them every month. Like most people can go 6 months with a 4-inch wide filter. It's got more surface area, holds more dust, and just doesn't have to be changed as often.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for answering that last one. I was going to ask y'all anyway. But are there any other questions? We just have a couple minutes left. We are going to send the recording of this out afterward. And so you'll be receiving an email with the recording and including some other helpful links. And I mentioned that survey will also go out in case you needed to schedule some time with our team or just view our demo. And Carol also just put a link in the chat for getting started with RentCheck and FilterTime. So if you wanted to go ahead and click that link and fill it out, you'll basically be able to cut the line and get everything submitted. And David, thank you so much. If you're interested in using RentCheck, we do offer a 2-week free trial of our essential and professional plans if you're interested in trying it out. All right. Well, I think I can call it here. Thank you so much, Blake and Marco, for joining us, and Carol for working the Q&A. And if you do have any questions or want any help from the RentCheck team, you can always come to getrentcheck.com or log into your account if you're already a user and send a chat to our team to get assistance.
Thanks a lot. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thanks so much, y'all. Have a good
See
one.
ya.
Bye.